Got everybody back? Okay. Call this meeting back to order. It is time for item 6, our public hearing on reconsideration of an ordinance amending Title 19 of the County Code by repealing Section 1948-060 private stables and replacing it with Section 1948-060 livestock management on parcels less than 5 acres in size. There is a final draft amendment.
Morning,
Israel. Good morning.
Morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, Mike Israel, Community Development Director. As you're aware, this draft ordinance this ordinance was processed through various committees and came back before the board and was heard twice. And it was voted on, but then at the following meeting, it was requested that it be brought back for reconsideration. So that is what is before you today. And I suggest that the board take any comments that there might be either by guests here or via Zoom and make your decision based on that. Thank you.
All right. Do we have any Zoomers? Start with, no. Any comments from the supervisors?
Yeah, I have some.
Okay.
You know, since this was tentatively passed, or passed, I should say, a number of people have expressed their concerns over it. I will say there's a lot of good aspects to it, sure. But I think what was really reason asked, I guess one of the reasons it was brought back is we have some concerns over it. One of the concerns I have is I think it's probably a good thing that may have a bad outcome. You ever hear the old sayings, sometimes the cure is worse than the malady? I'm afraid long term that maybe would probably be what this may bring about. Do we have some problems out there? Yeah, we do. But I think this might just be a bigger issue, and that's one reason why I think I'm looking to change my vote. I don't do that lightly. I'm not always, yes, no, no, yes. But I think I may have made a mistake voting for it, just on reflection.
Supervisor Forrester.
I think this needs to be more about the animal husbandry practices and the care of the animals rather than placing arbitrary restrictions on. It seems like it's more about chickens than anything else, and roosters. I don't think you're ever going to solve that rooster problem. You know what, people want to move into our county, and they don't want to listen to roosters. Next thing, they don't want to listen to gunshots. Next thing, they don't want something else. I mean, there's differences here than in the city. When I go to the city, when I went to college, for the first month, I had trouble sleeping because of all the cars at night. Well, what am I going to do? Say you need to slow the number of cars down? It's just country life, and people move here for the country life and the slower down pace and the beauty of the hills. Well, there's chickens along with that, roosters, and there's other things. But what I'm more opposed of is the way the animal husbandry practices that this should focus on more than some of the areas that it was directed at.
Comments, Jim?
One of the things that I had emails, this is Supervisor Brown, was quite a few emails, and I answered back. I always ask them, what's one less than too many, on animals? And nobody would give me answers back on that. This has been a weird ordinance, from both sides of the home, is, how you want to live in the area and how many animals. I've lived in the most noisiest areas in the world, and I love now living in, I think, is one of the quietest areas. And I have chickens right next door to me. If you've ever listened to jet engines, I was a half a mile away from the runway for 10 years that I lived. And my parents wouldn't stay at my house because they couldn't sleep. But that was every day for me. But for this ordinance, I was just looking for is just an area to start with. And this is just what I was, my area is quite a bit of residential area, being there in the hills with the trees. But I do have some ranches up there, so, this was just a beginning, but it was not an end.
Supervisor Axe?
Well, I'll just reiterate what I said, the last time, is that, I'd like to look very closely at the ordinance, and, if it needs some tweaking or changing, I'm amenable to that. I'm not certain that a lot happens on small parcels, but sometimes in residential areas, you need to have some limits. There's odors and flies and things like that. And, if you're serious about agriculture, don't convert agricultural land to residential areas. We've done that, and, it's not saying you can't have animals or livestock and do things, but, again, I'm willing to make changes. And if it wasn't working at all, even consider repealing it. But that's kind of where I stand.
All right. Any public comment? All right. Any Zoomers checked in? Is that-
Hi, Cindy Grandboyce. I'll keep it short. I'd love to see you repeal it. Thank you for changing your mind. I do think there's going to be some unintended consequences. As somebody who lived on a piece of land on top of Hoffman Street, very small, but I still managed to support 2 horses and a couple of pigs. People were a little upset about it, sorry for their luck. The animals were well provided for. I did what I could to be a good neighbor. But it's a small community. If you're within for me, I was in the country and the city enveloped me. And so we were kind of grandfathered in, and every single year I got harassing letters from the city of Jackson about my horses. And it's like, they've been here since 1936, not these same 2 horses, but enough of the harassment. And Mr. Forrester, Supervisor Forrester, you were spot on your remarks about this. So thank you for that. Thank you for changing your mind.
You're welcome.
All right.
We do have a Zoomer now.
Okay.
Go ahead, caller, are you there? Yes, go ahead.
All right, any others? No more public comment? We entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second?
Right, we had a motion by Supervisor Oneto, a second by Supervisor Brown to close the public hearing. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Pleasure of the board now.
This is, Greg, if this is back to us for reconsideration, does it still have to be a member in the, majority to make the motion, or since we moved on now?
Just back to you.
Wide open.
Wide open.
And basically, we have to make a motion to repeal our previous approval of the ordinance.
Well, it's like
it's like you've undone the approval and it's back at you in the first instance.
Okay.
You either thumbs up or thumbs down or something in between. You can change it,
Okay,
you can send it back. The one thing, what the statute says is that if the board makes modifications that were not considered by the planning commission, that it needs to go back to them to consider the changes that they didn't consider. So I don't necessarily, I mean, depending on what you do, if there are changes you want to look at or propose or make, if they're within the realm of what the planning commission heard, you could make those changes today and then act on it. If they're not, then you'd have to loop it back, or
if you want to just leave it status quo as it was before,
if you just wanted to, if this doesn't pass, then it doesn't pass, it just simply
Okay.
doesn't pass.
okay,
I think that's the way we should go, is just vote this thing down and start from scratch and try to get it right, in my opinion, So I would make that motion then to, vote ordinance amending Title 19, Amador County Code, repealing section 19.4.4H, private stables, to vote that ordinance down and, start over from scratch.
So the original section 1948-060 private stables would be the ordinance.
yes,
Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's better, yes,
Just trying to.
that clarifies it.
I just didn't read the whole thing.
I'll second that.
Okay. We had a motion by Supervisor Forster and a second by Supervisor Neto on the reconsideration and repeal of section 1948-060 private stables. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
No.
All right. The reconsideration fails 3-2.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Is that right? Is that the right way to say that? Or the motion failed?
The motion passed, the motion was.
Motion passed.
So reconsideration happened at the previous meeting. This motion, Richard's motion, was basically to vote no on the proposed amendment, and that passed. The Supervisor Forster's motion to vote no passed 3-2.
Okay. Did you get that, Jen?
Yep.
You got that clear? All right. Okay. Thank you, gentlemen. Okay, we are back on the regular schedule.